House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, meanwhile, is sending a letter to the IRS demanding answers on why an IRS agent made an unannounced visit to journalist Matt Taibbi's personal home. That same day, he had been testifying before Congress about the Twitter files and exposing the censorship of government working with Twitter. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes this. The IRS makes a strange house call on Matt Taibbi. The curious timing of the visit on the heels of the FTC demand that Twitter turn over names of journalists raises questions about potential intimidation. Joining me now is Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist. Grover, thanks very much for being here. Your thoughts on this IRS agent showing up at Matt Taibbi's home?
This is inexcusable in the United States. This is frightening. This cannot happen. But why would the IRS think that they could do this? Well, when somebody in the IRS stole thousands of IRS information and audits and so on and handed out to a left-wing group, Publica, nothing was done by the IRS. Nothing was done by the Justice Department. It has been 2 years since the administration has refused to let people know who did this. They haven't even asked for the material back. So when the IRS goes out and attacks people that the president doesn't like and rips their privacy apart, and by the way, hints to everybody else, we can do this to you. The administration says, we're going to give you $80 billion more. They're not unhappy. They don't want to know what's been done. They don't want it stopped. And I see the Justice Department doing nothing again. The IRS doesn't do house calls.
Well, that's why I keep asking. I mean, I've never seen in my entire life someone following up on your tax returns by showing up at your home. Now, Matt Taibbi tweeted that he does not want to talk about this. I could totally understand him being incredibly intimidated, but he did talk to me about government's big hand on Sunday. He was one of my special guests on Sunday Morning Futures, and here's what he told me about this ordeal of the Twitter files and how he has helped to expose the censorship of true information by government. Watch this.
We have to be on the lookout for these government efforts to try to centralize the cleansing of, quote, disinformation from the media landscape, which I don't think is the government's job. I believed in free speech my whole life. That was one of the things that attracted me, frankly, to the Democratic Party when I was a kid, was the idea that we were the party that believed in letting everybody have a say, and we'll just make a better argument. But apparently something very dramatic has changed in politics in America. The parties have had a complete reversal on how they view these issues.
Grover, do you see it that way?
Yes. Look, the team that wants to shout down professors who speak at universities is not comfortable that they can make the case to the American people for what they're trying to do. And so their position is, we will shout down lawyers, we will shout down judges, we will, who come and speak at universities, which is supposed to be where free speech flourishes most. This idea of, you also had the challenge where the FTC was going after people, when Elon Musk was letting the world know how the government had been pushing Twitter to do one thing or another and to censor certain people and certain thoughts. The FTC said, I want the list of all the journalists you talk to. The Federal Trade Commission does antitrust law, but they can ruin your day and cost you thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars with lawyers by making those kind of threats, can damage your stock value, but that's completely out of line. It's as if the army had shown up at your door and said, we had a question.
This is so disturbing. And by the way, Matt Taibbi said that this was not about anything monetary related anyway. They were saying that there was a identity issue, mistaken identity, and that's why they showed up at his house. Matt Taibbi says that the IRS owes him a considerable sum, that neither case was the issue of monetary. But I thought that the Republicans were rescinding that $80 billion that President Biden wanted to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to do just that.
That would require our friends in the Senate, which is run by Democrats, and a president's signature. Hopefully, within the negotiation over the budget, the debt ceiling increase, the Republicans want to pull back some of the spending on corporate subsidies for electronic vehicles, some of the corporate subsidies for the IRS, $80 billion, at least the part of it that has nothing to do with answering the phone. They've got $3 billion to answer the phone and help people. The rest is to go annoy you and to harass people. So let's spend the $3 billion, but not the 80. There's a lot of money to be saved in a deal on debt ceiling increase. That's where we may be able to pull back some of this IRS money. And a stunt like this may finally have cost the IRS tens of billions of dollars.
Well, Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, who we are going to speak with in a few minutes, he pressed Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen for an update on the stolen taxpayer IRS files published by ProPublica. You just mentioned it. Here's the exchange from last week's Senate Appropriations Committee hearing. Watch.
The fact is that ProPublica was a leaker or somebody at the IRS, or somehow ProPublica's leaked confidential taxpayer information. It's been nearly 2 years since this occurred. Has anyone been held to account?
I'm as frustrated by this situation as you are. I would love to know who's responsible for that. And I'm afraid that I know no more about this than I did when the leak first occurred.
Well, she doesn't know anything about it, Grover. And this is another way of intimidating or bullying somebody, making their personal tax returns public. Nearly 2 years later, we still don't have answers.
Yeah, they went after people like Bloomberg for crying out loud and released all of his material. The IRS hasn't even asked for the stolen material back. And people need to understand, this was not somebody breaking a window and grabbing some tax returns from some auditor's office. The leakers of this had access to the entire kingdom of data inside the IRS. They know exactly who did it. They know exactly how it was done. They had complete access, and they're not sharing with anybody who did it because this is a decision at the highest level over there.
Yeah.
This entire investigation should be open up, and assuming there is an investigation, what Yellen says is she's the head of the Treasury Department. The IRS works for her. This idea that, oh, I don't know, I'm just confused too, is insulting to do that to a U.S. senator or the American people.
Yeah. Grover, real quick on taxes this year, what should we expect in terms of higher taxes? Is that going through, or are the Republicans stopping that?
Here's the good news. Almost every Republican in the House and the Senate has signed the taxpayer protection pledge against any tax increase. That's more than the 41 senators it would take to filibuster. It's enough senators, congressmen in the House to say, we're not going to allow this to happen. So there will not be a tax increase. That can be stopped and will be stopped by the Republicans. 10 years ago, when Biden and Obama wanted tax increases as part of the debt ceiling, the Republicans said no, no, no. They had to say no many times and for many months, but eventually Biden and learned, as did Obama, the Republicans are not going to raise taxes. The Republicans are going to insist on spending restraint, at least as much spending restraint as there is debt ceiling increase. That's what happened 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It'll happen again.
All right, Grover, we'll keep watching. Thanks very much for being here. Grover Norquist joining us this morning.